Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, to your Fiscal Physical podcast. My name is Aaron Hoisington, and I'll be your guide through this podcast journey. I'm very excited to share this with my friend Ryan Nelson. I'm not a financial advisor myself, but I consider myself an expert communicator and adept at asking questions that help unravel complex topics into digestible content for the average layman like myself. And I am so excited that we're doing this podcast here with my good friend Ryan Nelson. He is the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management. He was recently honored with the silver medal for Best Wealth Management Firm by the esteemed Best of Sierra Nevada Awards. He's also a successful published author of the popular book, Your Fiscal Physical, 7 Keys to Becoming Financially Fit, which happens to be the premise of this podcast overall. And you can also find that book on Amazon. We'll link the description in the podcast description itself. But I could talk all day about your accolades here, Ryan, but let's get into the good stuff here. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks. Happy to be here. Excited to go on this journey with you.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We've been talking about doing this for a while with setting up a podcast. I mean, you've been years in the making with this going on with your financial firm, Alchemy Wealth Management, and kind of sharing your knowledge and just the diversity of financial knowledge you can share with the average person. So I'm super excited we get to do this now. And just to introduce yourself a little bit. What's your background? Your education, where you're born and raised, everything. Kind of let the listeners see who you are.
Yeah, let's dive in. So yeah, my name, like you said, I'm Ryan Nelson. I'm the owner of Alchemy Wealth Management, which is my financial planning firm. So I work with individual clients mostly on retirement planning. I'm born and raised in Reno, Nevada. Went to the local university here, University of Nevada Reno. I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering. Practiced engineering for a while. Went back to school to get my master's in business, and then transitioned from engineering into finance. And been doing that for the last 8 or so years, and love it. It's a great fit for my personality. And so over the last 4 or so years, I've been on a journey of writing this book. You alluded to Your Fiscal Physical. I'm not. I didn't know it was so popular until your intro. So appreciate that. But yeah, so just finished up Your Fiscal Physical later last year. And now excited to embark on this podcast and just continue to share more financial information with the public.
Yeah, no, definitely, and we're excited to have you share that with everybody, because I've read your book, read it a couple of times now, and I think personally, and this might be biased, but I think it should be taught in schools, because I feel like we learn so much in schools about algebra and calculus and these different things, but we never really touch on finances. Finances is kind of that deep, dark, enigma that people don't want to talk about overall. And being able to break it down for the layman or the simple person who, the average Joe is just crucial overall. And I think that's part of the reason why you started your own financial firm as well, too, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, it's taboo to talk finances, whether that's with your parents, your kids, your friends, your coworkers. A lot of employers, they encourage you not to discuss your salary with your other coworkers. Most parents don't discuss what their net worth is or their income with their kids. Typically on a Friday night or Saturday night, hanging out with your friends, you're not asking them how much money they earn or what type of investment accounts they're in. And so finances, to a lot of people, it's just this black box. And the true definition of the word ignorant, right? We're truly just ignorant about these financial topics because, to your point, we're not taught them in school, and we're not discussing them with our families. We're not discussing it with our friends. And so where are you going to learn this information? And it's in fact taboo to even bring up. So even if you wanted to bring it up to your friends, likely your friends wouldn't receive the conversation very well. So hopefully this is a platform where you can engage and start learning about some of those financial topics that you probably oftentimes haven't been exposed to maybe as much as we all hope you would have been.
Definitely. And you hit it right on the head as far as it being taboo and almost embarrassing. I mean, I'm 33 myself, and I feel like there's financial topics and definitions that get thrown around, weekly that I hear, and I just kind of nod and smile because it's like, oh, okay, like I should probably know that right now.
Right.
And so I think that's going to be really exciting about this podcast is to break down those simple or those things that you hear on a daily, weekly basis, or maybe you're talking with somebody and they bring it up and what does that actually mean? What is a bond? What is a stock? And how can you become more, fiscally fit,
right,
if you will?
Yeah, I think that I use this almost that identical example all the time, and I say if I was on a stage in front of 1,000 people and I said, hey, who here knows what a stock is? Raise your hand. You start to see some hands go up, and then people would see other hands go up, more hands would go up. All of a sudden, every single hand in the room would probably be up, right? And so everybody thinks the people around them know what, say, a stock is, what a bond is, right? Know these what are perceived to be these basic financial concepts. Now, if you were to talk with these same individuals that all had their hands up in that room, and you were to talk to them one-on-one, and you were to say, so what is a bond? Oftentimes they'd say, well, it's an investment. I don't really know. And so it's this funny, I think it's this funny relationship where I think most of us think everybody else knows all these financial topics, but the reality is, the vast majority of our population just doesn't know them. And again, circling back to because it's taboo to talk about. So I think you're absolutely right. I think you're not alone in being ignorant about some of these topics. And oftentimes we think other people kind of have it all figured out, but I think in reality, everybody's ignorant about these topics, but nobody wants to admit it.
Sure.
So it's kind of a funny dynamic.
Yeah, it definitely is. And speak a little bit about your firm, Alchemy Wealth Management. How is it unique versus, you always see commercials all the time of different financial firms and, hey, invest here, retire early, this and that, and it gets a little overwhelming to look at those different ones. And what kind of makes your firm unique in that regard?
Sure. So it's a smaller firm, so it's an RIA. There's probably lots of things that would make my firm unique compared to one of the larger investment firms like an Edward Jones, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, RBC, Wells Fargo. But some of the, to boil it down to maybe three main points, and these would be three of the points that that I made sure to include in my firm when I started it, would be that the firm is fee only, fully independent, and fiduciary. And I'm happy to dive deeper into any one of those if you'd like.
Yeah, I think the one for sure that, first off, you can go to his website at alchemywealth.com, yep. And you have some awesome videos on there that I feel like really break it down for those different things. If anybody wants any more information on it, encourage you to check out the website for sure. But let's talk a little bit about the fiduciary.
Sure.
Let's dive into that one as far as, because that's a little unique and
right.
Pretty important as far as a financial advisor being that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it probably, we probably deserve to do full episodes on each of these, and maybe even an episode on how to vet a financial advisor or something, and getting into what fee only means and being independent and why that might be important to somebody looking for financial advice could be useful knowledge as well down the road. But yeah, if we want to touch on being a fiduciary, so the essence of a fiduciary means that I become a fiduciary. My firm is a fiduciary, so I become a fiduciary for my clients, which effectively means that I'm just legally required to put their best interests ahead of my own. So when you go into the doctor, your doctor has a fiduciary obligation to you. They're required to put your interest ahead of their own. In my firm, it's no different. It's a little bit confusing if you go to a financial advisor. You'd think it would just be super straightforward. You say, hey, are you a fiduciary? Yes or no. Our licensing, the traditional sort of financial advisor licensing in the industry makes it a little bit more complicated. And what I would tell you is most financial advisors are fiduciaries for their clients some of the time, but not all of the time. So they'll be fiduciaries for some clients some of the time, but not all clients all the time. So my firm is a fiduciary for every single one of my clients at all the time. And so that does, make my firm a little bit different there.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think that having it seems pretty simple, and you would think that everybody would like that. Hey, I have my best interests in mind, managing my money, but sometimes that's not the case. So having that be, hey, I'm a fiduciary, I advertise that, and make sure that you have your client's best interest in mind is huge, because that just gives you that peace of mind as the client, being like, hey, he's doing the best for my interests overall. And so I think that that's a huge point of, emphasis as far as your firm goes.
Right. And so my firm, not to get too much into the weeds with my firm, but, my firm signs a fiduciary oath. There'd be lots of other individuals you might talk with and ask if they're a fiduciary. They might say yes. And if you ask them to put it in writing, their compliance team won't sign off on that, which I think is just an interesting dynamic. So yeah, again, this would probably be, we could dive into this deeper on a future conversation, but I think it is interesting. And if I was in the market for an advisor, trying to find a fiduciary who's willing to put that in writing would probably be near the top of the list on what to look for.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And then definitely, like I said, go to alchemywealth.com, check it out for sure if you want to dive more into Ryan's firm. Very visually appealing website as well, too. That's a big deal as far as when I look at a website. I'm like, hey, I want to make sure that I have fun like looking through this and it's easy on the eyes, so it definitely accomplishes that. But let's touch base a little bit about what you want to accomplish with this podcast. A big thing is what's in scope, what's out of scope. Sometimes when you have a conversation with somebody or you start a podcast or you listen to something, you want to see, cool, what is this podcast? And more importantly, like, what isn't this podcast? So if you could speak a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish here.
Sure. So I think we touched on some of this already. And again, just the fact that discussing finances is taboo makes it hard to educate yourself on finances, right? Which just leaves lots of us naturally ignorant about different financial topics. And so the hope of this podcast would purely be that financial education. So each episode will be tackling one financial topic. Hopefully we can keep them pretty bite-sized. We don't want to waste anybody's time. So we're talking between 5 and 20-minute episodes, pretty quick, to the point, one financial topic, and we'll move on. And so again, that the purpose or the mission of the podcast will be that of financial education. The reason why I want to provide this financial education is a lot of what we talked about before, just the fact that it's hard to come by. Even if you want to educate yourself, it takes a lot of work to educate yourself when there's not other people that you're available to have these conversations with. And so that'd be the purpose of the podcast. What this podcast is not, it's not going to be personalized financial advice. It is going to be education, and hopefully, if we're doing our jobs right, hopefully a little bit of entertainment as well. So it'll be education and entertainment. It's not going to be personalized financial advice. So hopefully, this gives people kind of it kind of a springboard or a diving board to dive into financial topics, so they can get that baseline. They can even, it's if you don't know, when you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to even go Google something to educate yourself on it. So this will be sort of some force-fed education almost, and start giving people that baseline of how to talk about these topics like in an educated manner. If they wanted to go Google something and dive into it deeper, hopefully they have the foundation to be able to explore that financial topic deeper. They could Google it. They could go talk with a financial professional and figure out what makes sense for their own personal financial situation. So again, this won't be personalized financial advice, but certainly hopefully we can touch on that education. And one of the things I mentioned in the book, Your Fiscal Physical, is that 75% of Americans rank money management as the number one cause of stress. So clearly our ignorance around these financial topics is creating stress. That's insane. 3/4 of the world's population, or 3/4 of the U.S. population, if you were to ask their number one cause of stress, it's money related.
Yep.
That is insane. And what I find when I'm interacting with clients on a day-to-day basis, what I find is most of the things individuals are stressing out about money, it can be resolved. Oftentimes they're either stressing about something they don't need to be stressing, they're stressing about the wrong things, or they could put simple plans of action into place that would alleviate that stress. And so again, hopefully this education can help them either understand what they should and shouldn't be stressing about, and if it is an important topic, what steps maybe they could be putting into place to help put themselves into a financial position where they don't need to be stressed about it.
Definitely. No, and I think that's great. And those statistics are staggering. But when you kind of break it down, you think about the conversations that you might have had with your wife or your partner, and a lot of them revolve around finances, especially as you get a little older and you might have a house, you might have a kid. you might want to buy a new car, and everything kind of revolves around that. I mean, money does make the world go round in a way, and having something that we can bring to the table to where we break it down just in a general sense to make people feel more comfortable with it, or just get them to be able to ask the questions, to be able to Google it or go to somebody and feel comfortable with being like, hey, I don't know what this means. Like, can you break that down for me? I think is a huge part of what this podcast is hoping to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly money can't buy happiness, but what's Chris Jansen say? It can buy you a boat, right?
Yes.
and what can cause even more stress is maybe if one spouse wants to use that money to buy the boat and one spouse doesn't, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways this can bubble up in a relationship, and another I thought eye-opening stat was. You can find lots of different data on this. So, I try not to put any too much weight in any one of these data points because there's just so many different data points going around and it's hard to know what the actual numbers are. But nonetheless, some of the numbers I've seen is that the number one cause of divorce as well as money is money related. Mm-hmm. And roughly between 20 and 40% of all divorces, the reason for that divorce is financial related. So that's virtually 1 out of 3 divorces are caused, or at least money is some root cause of that divorce. Again, and I don't want to put too much weight in any one metric, but nonetheless, I think we can infer that it's a substantial stressor in people's lives. And if the result of that stress is resulting in things like divorce, certainly that financial education can, I think, undoubtedly improve the quality of our lives.
Absolutely. And to kind of break down just briefly here, because like I said, we'll keep these between 5 and 20-minute episodes because I really like that time frame because somebody can listen to it on the way to work or just check it out real quickly here. But kind of how we'll do it is we'll do our introductions, and then we'll break down one topic or question that might have been posed by our listeners, and then we'll have a little personal section at the end of it because personal finance is that just personal, and we'll solicit feedback from the audience, see what kind of questions they want, and as far as kind of the schedule of release dates, what are you kind of thinking as far as that goes?
Yeah, so this podcast will be going live Tuesday, January 2nd, and then we'll want to go release a podcast every Tuesday thereafter. So they'll be released first thing in the morning. On your way to work every Tuesday morning, this should be in your email player or your podcast player, I should say.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. It will be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. This bad boy is going to be there for you. And you can expect that quick 5 to 20-minute episode on a weekly basis being released on Tuesdays.
Excellent. And just if you guys have questions or you really enjoy or just have feedback in general, feel free to email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com.
And in regards to that, I think we want to engage with you, the audience. And so be sure to email us questions. If there's a financial topic that interests you, email us the question at podcast@alchemywealth.com. And even better, if you record yourself asking that question, we're happy to actually put that on the podcast as well and make it a little bit more engaging. But so definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to hear what questions you guys have and what we can educate you on. So to reach out to us, whether you just type out your question or you record the question and send it to us, just send that to podcast@alchemywealth.com.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'll get into those for sure. And like I said, we'll break down these different financial topics. Hopefully, just give you some information to kind of chew on and digest, and kind of start to think and being able to dive into your financial situation overall. Like you said, this isn't going to be that financial advice, but hopefully it'll give you some food for thought overall. And so I'm excited to be along with this journey with you here, Ryan. And we thank everyone who hopefully will be listening to this and continue to be listening to it. And I'm just happy to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you hosting this podcast. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks to all the listeners, both now and in the future. And join us next week. I think we're going to be chatting about exactly what a stock is. So go ahead and join us next week, and hopefully we can start diving into that financial literacy.
Excellent. Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode, and consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.